Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Flavor and Fiction. Okay, so technically, I haven't even started my 2020 challenge because I was finishing a book from my 2019 challenge. I had started it in December and couldn't finish it, and now I finished it, and here it is. It is Soledad, Brother by Jorges Journey. There it is. And if you don't know who Jorges Journey is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is a Black revolutionary who was put in jail at 18. He was arrested for stealing $70 from a gas station with a couple of guys. And he was sentenced to 1 to 100 years in jail, in prison. And the guys that he were with were out in like 4 months. But because he had some prior robberies and some ties with some Black revolutionaries, they kept yanking his chain and telling him, oh, you'll get out this year. Or if you do 1 year without any incidents, we'll let you out. Well, I'll let you see if that happened or not. So now let me tell you what we're going to be making. It was hard to pick a special ingredient because he didn't really talk about food a lot. He actually used fasting as a form of discipline. He said that he could get full off of what most men would starve on, and that helped him through. But he constantly referred to the cops as pigs. So our special ingredient is pork. Yes, I went there. And I found an amazing recipe on Pinterest, my best friend, for a pineapple pork that you put in the slow cooker. So that's what we're going to be making today. Okay, sorry, I got really hot under that ring light, so I had to come over here and cool down. But in talking about Jorges Journey, one of the things, most of his letters were to his father. And depending on his mood, he would either address them to Father, Robert, or Lester. So Robert's his first name, Lester is the middle name. He had a really complicated relationship with his father. His father wasn't around when he was little. When he came back, he was financially responsible, but he was emotionally disconnected. He was mainly used to discipline his kids and provide financially, and that was it. He was angry at his dad for a lot of things, including putting him in Catholic school, because he felt like religion was just used to keep Black men in line and keep Black men down, and he hated his father for letting that happen to him. But as you can see through the years, his attitude toward his father leaned more toward one of understanding and forgiveness. One of the things that really ticked him off, though, was I guess his father came to visit, and George was like in a bad place. He was angry and sad that day. Obviously his attitude went up and down, but his father was afraid that he was going to hurt himself, so he told the authorities, and that got George landed in isolation for a bit. And he was like, "I'll never forgive you for that, for telling on me." But of course, I mean, when you're in prison, you don't have that many connections, and you want to keep the ones you do have. So they eventually came around and started talking again. Now, when it comes to his mom, he went back and forth between being like really patronizing and then depicting her as a saint in some areas. He was really, as smart as he was in a lot of areas, he was a huge misogynist. There were a lot of comments in there about how women should just sit by and listen and learn to the men talking about policies around them. And I mean, he got put in jail when he was 18. So I guess he didn't have time to develop that part of his brain. But yeah, that stuff wasn't great to read. I'd say about 40% of this book resonated with me. It was really interesting to see how over the years his mindset changed toward a lot of things. His main concern was not becoming one of those men with the blank stare behind the eyes. And the catch-22 is that those are the men that got parole. He felt like he knew what he had to do to get parole, but he wasn't ready to sell himself out. He felt like only men with that slave mentality ended up getting paroled. So even though he wanted to be free, he wanted to be he felt like, first of all, not knowing, if you get a sentence from 1 to 100 years, you don't know how long you're going to be there. So the not knowing is worse than the knowing. And every year they'd be like, oh, you stay out of trouble for 6 months, stay out of trouble for a year, you'll be fine. But then the next time he went before, it'd be different people. And they say, there's no record of a deal like that. We don't make deals like that. So it really just did something to him to not know how long he was going to be there. So switching gears, I made this recipe last night and my sister and my niece came over to try. You're supposed to put this in the crock pot for 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. So I did it before going to church, and then I came home and, did some errands and chores, and then it was ready. Okay, you want it over a medium-high heat, and then you add salt and pepper to both sides. So all you want to do is you want to brown it slightly on each side. So let's talk about some of the ways they tried to keep him down. Number one, they would throw him in solitary. There'd be like a raid. They'd throw him in solitary without any reason. And then when he returned to his cell, all of his belongings would be gone. His parents bought him a typewriter. He had, because the most important thing to him was writing, because he also wrote a book when he was in prison, Blood in My Eye. And I read that years ago, and that's, I definitely recommend that one as well. I'll put a link to that in the description below. So he basically had to emotionally separate himself from everything. Pictures of his family, letters that he wanted to save. He had letters from friends and family. He wrote to Angela Davis, and I think Huey Newton sent him a message, but he couldn't hold on to anything because they would just toss it around and get rid of it while he was in solitary. So another thing that they would do just to mess with his mind is, so they had a rule, like they kept saying to him, like, if you go a year without any incidents, then you can get paroled. And when he kept going years and years without incidents, they were running out of excuses. So what they do was, because there was a law that if you're involved, or a rule at the jail, if you're involved in a fight with weapons, what was the rule? If you're involved in a fight with weapons, you have to serve a certain amount of time. So what they would do was send the corrections officers to attack him with billy clubs, and then say, well, you were involved in a fight with weapons. But the only weapons involved were the weapons used against him. So that was just another tactic. And he started realizing over the years that, he was not going to win. He was not going to be let out. He kept a semblance of hope. He had a great lawyer that he had a great relationship with, but for the most part, he realized that he wasn't going to make it. So now I'm going to show you when I put all the ingredients in the crock pot, and we'll come back to our discussion. Okay, so now we got it in the Instant Pot, or your crock pot, and now we're going to rub it with some minced garlic. Okay, now we're going to add in 1/4 cup of our low sodium or less sodium soy sauce. Next, we're going to dump in a can of pineapple chunks. And I'll be using Domino dark brown sugar. Yeah, so just do your best to dump it on and make it kind of even. You don't have to rub it into the pork. I'm wondering if I went a little too heavy on the brown sugar, but we'll find out soon enough. Now we're going to put the lid on and leave it for 4 to 6 hours. I'm going to do closer to 6 to get the best results possible. And I'm going to go to church and go about my day. And when I come home, we'll see what happened. So before I show you how the meal turns out, let's talk about some of the ways that George worked on himself while he was in prison. One of the most important things to him was learning languages. When he still had hope that he would get out, he wanted to travel. He wanted to help disenfranchised people all over the world. So he was learning Arabic, Spanish, I think Chinese, but he wanted to at least be fluent in 5 languages by the time he got out. So he spent a lot of his time working on that and also building up his vocabulary, his English vocabulary. He would learn 5 new words a day after breakfast when he had 45 minutes of free time. So that's what he would do. Like a lot of people in prison, he worked out like a fiend. He said it helped, get rid of sexual urges, and it helped keep his mind off food and whatever else areas he felt he was lacking. It helped. And of course, writing. Not just writing his book, but writing correspondence to everyone in his family, friends he hadn't seen in a long time. Once he got word, like over the years, his situation became more widespread, widely known. What am I trying to say? More people knew about his situation. And he became a face of the movement. And so he wanted to make sure that people understood his mindset and what was happening to him in prison. One of the most important relationships he developed in prison was with his little brother, John. Jonathan was just a baby when George went to prison, but as he grew up, George wrote to him and kept tabs on him, wanting to make sure that he didn't grow up with this slave mentality. And so they became really close. And it's really hard for me not to tell you what happened with Jonathan, how he tried to help his brother. But I don't want to ruin anything for you. Actually, a lot is explained. If you read the foreword, you might be okay, because a lot is explained by Jonathan Jackson Jr., George's nephew. So yeah, maybe just make sure you read the foreword before reading the rest of this book. And I said no spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything else. But there were definitely moments in this book that had me stop and think for a long time, not just about how people in prison must feel when they know that they're not getting out, but just the struggles that Black men go through and the journey of their growth. I'll just leave it at that. And on that happy note, let me show you how our pork tenderloin turned out. It should be done. It's been keeping warm. We're gonna unlock this and see what it looks like. If I can get the, well, oh, camera fogged up immediately. It's interesting, like. My sister and my niece are here and they're gonna try some. We'll see. Okay, here's a close-up of our plates. Yes, uh-oh. My niece is wrestling me for the camera.
Vivian, stop it.
Well, okay, she's okay. Now we're gonna taste it together, right? And we're gonna say it's good no matter what, right? I'm actually very curious.
Wait a
1, 2, 3.
I like it.
I don't mind it. It tastes
It's
better
good.
than it smells.
It's sweet. I think it smells good. What
Well, because you like the smell of garlic.
I guess.
It's just stuck in my nostrils.
Drop rice on her hand and she's like, I'm gonna eat it.
I thought it was gonna be too sweet because of all these pineapples. Are you gonna eat a pineapple with it?
It is sweet. Yeah, I ate a pineapple with it.
Oh.
It is sweet, but I like it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, wait, what?
What's
Oh, I'm here. Taste this.
We want to see your reaction.
Vivian!
The shade! The shade!
Okay, mommy will eat it. Mmm.
Shady baby!
Yum, yum.
No, don't try to be my friend. I made you this food. And now you're gonna snatch my edges.
That was just being silly before.
You wanna fight? She loves it, guys.
She loves it.
We'll just edit out the other part. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Flavor and Fiction. Go out and get the book, and I'll put the recipe down below in case you want to try it. Say bye.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Aww.